and welcome along to the Don Robbie channel. We got a special here. Looking forward to the final. England versus Italy at Wembley. Joining me, I've got Duncan Alexander from Opta and the analyst.com. He is an expert when it comes to stats, right? And he's here to analyse everything around England, everything around Italy and the Euros final. Can you believe we're in the final?
Nope. No.
No, I thought you would say, yeah, no problem.
No, I can't. I mean, let's be honest, anyone under than 55 has never seen England in a final. So it's unprecedented. And I think a lot of people thought it might never happen again. And it has. So it is pretty crazy. I think it's one of those things that will really sink in as time goes on as well. Maybe in like a year, you'll be walking down the street and suddenly go, whoa, England got to the Euros final, didn't it?
Yeah. Do you know the thing is about it though, right? And we were sort of talking about it this morning, in that we've got to put some respect on Gareth Southgate's name, innit? Because semi-finals of the FA Cup, semi-finals of the Nations League, all right, I know it's a new competition and now the finals of the Euros. It's incredible. When we actually look on it, there has been a build-up to this, isn't it? Even before that, I remember the under-18s or the
doing 21s and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's like it's been a process. I think it's the first time England senior teams ever really had that. You know, you go back to even tournaments when they've done quite well, managers have stumbled on a formation or a set of players, like Bobby Robson in 1990, you know, switched to a sweeper system and it works. And, you know, England had a pretty good tournament, got through to the semis. But with Southgate, he's used his whole time to learn. You know, like you mentioned the Nations League, they went away to Spain and won 3-2, you know, beat them on the break. He's created teams that can counter-attack, he's created teams that can sit. And England now play specifically for the opponent that they're facing. You know, I think for a long time, England were like, we're England, we're at Wembley, we'll turn up and, you know, the opposition will have to deal with that. And that doesn't really work, particularly in international football. So, yeah, I think that's what's A, been refreshing, and B, we're kind of seeing the benefits of it because we're actually in a final. Yeah,
and you know what? One of the things is when the tournament started, we were all like, you know, up front, we're all right, man. We got look at the players we've got. Look at the players we've even got on the bench here: Foden, Rashford, all these guys in reserve. Our one weak spot is defence. That's what's really worrying us. That's what everybody was saying. However, the defence has been brilliant, hasn't it?
Yeah. Matched Italy in 1990. You know, not conceding a goal in the first 5 games, which is incredible, really. Spain won the Euros in 2012, letting in only 1 goal, but obviously there was a game less then because there were fewer teams. So, you know, if England did win 2-0 on Sunday, they'd be essentially the best defensive team to ever win the Euros. So,
wow.
And I think it's that really good combination of, like, you got, you know, obviously the defence has chopped and changed a little bit, but those kind of 2 United players and the 2 City players have really kind of combined into, like you say, like just this incredible team, really. And like Luke Shaw, I think, you know, has been brilliant both defensively and going forwards. And I think that's been a testament to him as well, because, you know, he was the youngest player to appear at the 2014 World Cup all that time ago. And then his career really kind of did, you know, go downwards, really. And he probably thought he might never play for England again. And here he is, you know, in that Germany game. In the Ukraine game, he assisted 2 goals in 3 minutes, 51 seconds, which is more than Zinedine Zidane did in 14 games in his whole career at the Euros.
Wow.
So pretty
Zidane?
Good, yeah.
Well, that's why we got him here, you know, because I would never ever have been comparing Luke Shaw to Zidane. But, you know...
Well, I can advise don't do it because you'll get a lot of angry French people on Twitter.
They're angry already because they got knocked out. Now, what about the midfield? Because that as well has been impressive. I've been really impressed with Declan Rice. I kind of knew about. I knew he was a very good player. Calvin Phillips as well. I mean, that midfield of them two sort of holding, they've been brilliant in the tournament. Yeah,
and Calvin Phillips is he's proven really versatile. You know, he was very box to box at Leeds at the start of his career, which we kind of saw actually in the first game against Croatia. He did push on a bit more. But obviously Bielsa's really turned him into a sitting midfielder who can ping really good passes, and we've seen that on a number of occasions. I mean, I think you could probably do a highlights reel of like 5 or 6 incredible passes from Calvin Phillips, and he had a brilliant bit of control, didn't he, against Denmark when the ball's dropping out of the sky and he just kind of flicks it backwards as well. So, yeah, I mean, he really, I think what makes a good tournament or a good tournament team is often players you didn't really maybe know that much about before really come to the fore and, you know, become these kind of iconic figures. And I think, like you say, Rice and Phillips, You could go back 6 months and maybe people wouldn't have picked either of them for the team. And then if they do tire, having the likes of Jordan Henderson to come on. I love it when Henderson comes on because he's like a kind of manager of a regional office that comes on and just like, come on everyone, calm down.
Yeah.
Manager Henderson's here just to chill everyone out for a bit. And yeah, it's and I think that's what England have is the squad. That bench England have got is very strong.
Incredible. The go-to guy for England has been Raheem Sterling, who maybe didn't have his greatest season for Man City, but for England in this tournament, he's been exceptional.
Yeah, and we have that thing in international football where some players do play better for their country than their club. Lucas Podolski, who Arsenal fans remember, was brilliant for Germany. There's one point when he'd scored more goals for Germany than he had in club football, which is odd, but it was the case. And Raheem Sterling's obviously brilliant at both, but like you say, did sort of fall out of the team at City towards the end of the season. But he's just become this incredible figurehead, and obviously growing up near Wembley and scoring those goals. And he's been involved essentially, if you include things like winning penalties and things like that, he's been involved in every single England goal at the tournament.
Every single one?
Yeah, which is, be that the pre-assist, the assist, the scoring it, the winning the penalty, and it's, that is incredible. And I think I'd be really surprised if he wasn't named player of the tournament because he, I've spoken to some people who are not England fans from other countries, and often if you support a team, it's quite hard to get a grasp on who is playing well or not. And they're all like, yeah, he's, everyone's just like, well, we knew he was good, but this is kind of, dragging your team to the title.
Yeah, I remember I was at the semi-final and there was a guy in front of me, and it was just after half time, and we're all kind of saying what we do, and he's like, oh, I drag off Sterling now. And I'm like, are you crazy? I go, his goal involvement, I think not just in this tournament, but overall, he's got an excellent goal involvement for England, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's been brilliant for basically the last couple of years, really. And he just gets. I think international football is a bit of it's a different beast to club football. Managers don't get as long to train the players. It's not as rehearsed. You see some of the top club teams now, and it's incredibly intricate, and you sort of see the stuff that Guardiola does, and even Arteta as well. He's learnt from him, but I think international football is a little bit more basic, and I think that really helps in some ways. Someone like Sterling, who is he plays off the cuff a bit more. I guess the one criticism of Sterling over the years has been that if he has time to think about it, often he can mess it up. Whereas if he's playing instinctively, he's really, really good. And I think international football that is quite a good thing for international football. So
now Harry Kane's turned up, right? And I've been having this sort of dispute with some Tottenham fans, and I was saying that I personally needed him to turn up in this tournament before I can start putting that world-class tag on his name, because I feel that sometimes he hasn't turned up in these big games, but in this tournament he has turned up.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of criticism, well, not a lot, but some criticism after the last World Cup. Obviously won the Golden Boot, but scored a lot of goals against Panama, and quite a lot of penalties. Whereas this tournament's been the reverse. He didn't score in the groups, but since the knockout started, 4 goals against big teams as well. And he's now gone level with Gary Lineker for most England goals in tournaments. 1 more in the final, and he'll be outright, which is that's a pretty cool place to be. He scored 7% of all of England's goals at tournaments in their entire history. So
7%?
7%, yeah, which is pretty impressive.
So I've got to start calling him world class now.
It's funny though, isn't it? Because he did start so slowly. I was at the Croatia game and he was lumbering around and he didn't look fit. But I think he's one of those players that, he needs game time to get into his rhythm. And I think I think sometimes England fans, particularly maybe against Scotland, say we're a bit frustrated that he stayed on longer than maybe he should have. But I think he needed that to kind of get into the groove. And he often, once he scores 1, will go on a bit of a run. And hopefully he can continue that in the final. I don't know the Italians are going to be scared of him. Him against Chiellini and Bonucci is going to be some battle.
Now I was going to move to the Italians because we're singing the praises of England. We've been brilliant, but they've been brilliant as well. I think they've been entertaining, they've been exciting. They're not your typical Italian teams that are we've always known over the years as being like very mean in defence. They are all action, aren't they?
They've been amazing, and we said a minute ago about international football being a bit different to club football. They're probably the closest to a club team we've seen in the tournament. Mancini he hasn't just picked big stars. He's really gone to, you know, clubs like Sampdoria and Sassuolo and picked players that can fit into the system that he wants to play. And I think they've really, you know, I think they've been the most kind of consistently exciting, as you say, team. I think the issue for them is their style has been so all out there, they possibly run out of steam and players a little bit. You know, the Spinazzola injury is a massive loss. We saw them being less effective on the left flank in the semi-final without him. There was a point actually in the England game when Sterling did that really good run in extra time, which was really good because it took the danger away. But I was also thinking, don't run too fast because we're getting to the point where players' hamstrings are on the ragged edge, aren't they? And I think we've started to see that with Italy, but they're picking up a few injuries. So obviously they've got an extra day to prepare than England for the final, but it would be interesting to see whether they go all out at the start or whether it is a bit more cagey, because you know, even for them a final is a big thing. So.
The guy controlling it for them in midfield is Jorginho of Chelsea. You know, again, a guy that sometimes doesn't always stand out, but quietly behind the scenes he does a lot of work, doesn't he?
He's one of those players. He's got a Premier League record actually. I think Chelsea played away at West Ham a couple of seasons ago and he completed 171 passes, which is a lot, which is more than I support Wickham, and that's pretty much more than we do most games. But the game ended 0-0, and you know we tweeted that on Opta Joe, and had a lot of Chelsea and West Ham fans saying, "Well, who cares? It was 0-0." And he is that sort of player. He's incredibly good at controlling matches, but he needs players around him to do stuff, and sometimes that doesn't happen. What he's had in this tournament are players that can really do that. You know, particularly someone like Chiesa, who's come in mid-tournament. And again, a lot of players come in mid-tournament and make their name. You know, Jeff Hurst in 1966 didn't start the tournament. It's only because Jimmy Greaves got injured that Hurst came in and then obviously, you know, did all that he did. So Chiesa's a bit like that. And yeah, Jorginho has been great. Verratti's been great as well. I mean, people have forgotten Locatelli, who was brilliant for the first two games. Has barely got any time since. So yeah, they've got a really good squad, a really good team. The way they play as well, they press really high. They've pressed more than any other team. They scored more goals from winning the ball back high up the pitch than the team. So you can kind of see how the game might go, particularly at the start. Italy really pressing. England, you know, maybe they might go to a 3-4-3 again. But as we said earlier, the one thing we know now with this England team is that they will have a specific plan to play Italy. It won't just be like, right, you did it against Denmark, lads, out you go again, more of the same. They will adjust. You know, maybe Trippier might come in, or yeah. So it's going to be an intriguing tactical battle, and for once, actually mean that rather than it's going to end 0-0. So.
It's very difficult to play to score goals against Italy because, again, they've been unbeaten for a long time.
33 games.
33 games, 33 international games unbeaten. I mean, that's unreal, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a national record. I think the previous one was in the 1930s, where A, they had, you know, advantages, and B, there weren't that many good teams around. So to beat that now in the modern game, and yeah, a lot of those games were qualifiers, so maybe the opposition wasn't great, but they've done it all through this tournament. But the flip side to that is England. I think England have won 15 of their last 17 games at Wembley. So it really is that sort of clash of, you know, home advantage and against probably the most informed international team in the world. So
Chiellini and Bonucci.
Yeah.
Got to get past those two, and then when you do get past those two, you've got that giant in goal.
Yeah.
Right, of Donnarumma to get past. I mean, it's hard to score goals against him, isn't it?
I don't get Donnarumma. He's the oldest looking, whatever is he, 21, 22-year-old in the world. And he's been playing for years. Like, yeah. I mean, I know he came into the Milan team when he was basically 16, but he's the most experienced young keeper ever. And he commands it really well. And I mean, I know you were talking earlier about, you know, Pickford maybe not looking super comfortable at points for England, but Donnarumma really has got that kind of inspirational, I mean, that central defence with him behind them is solid. But then again, I'm sure Italy are going to be worried about the range of talent England have got. You know, if you can keep Foden, Grealish, Sancho on the bench, there's some good options to bring on. And there was that good bit against Denmark where, for the first time in the whole tournament, we had Grealish and Foden on together, and they were linking up, and that was pretty good. So
we're going to need it, man, because they're very good. They're a very good team. What's your prediction? What do you think is going to happen in the game? How do you see it going, and what do you see the outcome?
I mean, as I said, I think the first 10 minutes are going to be really important. I think Italy, they could sit back, but I think they'll try and really press England. I think we kind of saw Denmark try and do that a bit. Italy are better at it, so it's going to be a real test. I think that's why I think Southgate might go a bit more defensive for this. And obviously everyone knows a final is a one-off game. If you have to defend for 60 minutes before you open up, but you win the game, that's fine, because no one ever remembers performances. If you look down the history books, no one goes, oh yeah, this team won that trophy, but they didn't play that well in that game. You know, it doesn't matter, just win the trophy. So I think Italy will come out, England will have to weather that storm. But we've seen this England team in this tournament really have kind of 15, 20-minute spells of when they're really on it, and I think they've deliberately gone for little bursts of energy, and it's what Guardiola did with City last season as well. And I think in the kind of pandemic era, teams can't really do 90 minutes of all-out football anymore, which I think undid Liverpool a bit last season. And I think England have replicated that quite well. And you know, when they really go for it, like the first half of extra time against Denmark, that was some all-out pressure. And I think they're going to have to pick their moments to do that against Italy. So.
I do worry about Pickford. I mean, you were telling me before we came on, maybe I shouldn't worry so much, but I don't know, man. His distribution.
His distribution's a funny one in that I know what you mean, and I remember, as I said, I was at the Croatia game and he got into a bit of an argument with John Stones about whether he was kicking it long or short and stuff, but he can play some unbelievably good passes. Even with his wrong foot, he can ping a pass. But then he does have a habit of really just knocking it out to the flank. And he was trying to hit Sterling for a lot of games. It's like, Raheem Sterling's not going to win that many balls in the air. So
somewhere in the game the other night, he was trying to hit Sterling's family, I think, in the stands. I mean, I don't know what he was doing on some of them. But what do you think the score will be?
I think it will be relatively low scoring. I think I could see it being like 1-1 at full time and then going to extra time. I mean, we've already had more extra time at this tournament than any previous Euros. And obviously, right? only 2016 had as many games as this one. But even comparing those two, we've already had more. You know, there's very little margin for error in international football, and I think this one could go all the way, and you know, maybe go to penalties. England are good at penalties now, so it's fine. We've won our last two shootouts. So
we're good at penalties.
Yeah, he's good.
See, that's why we got you here, because to me, I just dread penalties, and I think England. We're awful at penalties, but then it's my memories of times gone by, isn't it?
Well, that's the thing. It's that kind of recency bias stuff as well, in that, you know, Kane obviously missed the penalty in the game, but scored the rebound. That's only the second time in a tournament England have ever not scored a penalty. Beckham did one against France in the Euro 2004.
Yeah.
Other than that, England are probably the best team in tournaments at taking penalties in the game. But
in the game. But now I'm on about when it gets to the penalties at the end now.
Well, 2018 Colombia, 2019 Switzerland in the third place playoff. No one remembers that, but it did happen. So that's
I was at the Colombia one. I couldn't believe it. I was watching.
Yeah, right. Well, Eric Dyer walking up.
Yeah. And to be fair, at that Colombia game, I remember being at that game, and literally, I mean, I know people have been talking about the advantage England have with playing at Wembley. I remember that game, literally the whole stadium was Colombian. Like everybody there, apart from me and a few guys. Because at that stage there wasn't even many England fans at the Russia World Cup, and they dealt with the pressure. So maybe they are improving on that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, you're giving me a bit of hope. So what are you saying, England on penalties?
Yeah, I mean, I could see it going. Both Italy would. I think there's actually quite a lot of similarity between Italy and England. You know, two countries with really big football heritage, you know, a lot of history, huge fan bases, etc., etc. But they've had a lot of, you know, they've lost penalty shootouts, they've thrown away, you know, they've not qualified for tournaments, things like that, which, you know, some other big countries that doesn't really happen to. So I think, you know, it should be a really good final between two sort of classic sort of football nations, essentially. But if it goes to penalties, I don't think there's a team with an advantage, really. I think it will be up for grabs. In fact, there's all that's ever happened in the Euros with penalties, with teams that get two shootouts, is that the team wins the first one and loses the second one. Well, Italy beat Spain, so they're due to lose the next one. So there we go.
All right. Right, let's run through. Let me just run through the tournament and just talk about, like, you know, we'll run through it quickly, right? Who do you think, you know, with the benefit of stats and that, has been the best striker at the tournament? or amongst the best strikers at the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy to forget the group stages when lots of stuff happens. You know, that's like 65% of the whole tournament happens in those group stages, and there were some good candidates there. I mean, obviously, you know, Patrick Schick did a great job for the Czech Republic, scored that great goal at Hampden Park, which broke a lot of hearts. But you know, he's still got an outside chance of Golden Boot as well. So yeah, he's been good. As I said, Chiesa's come in, done really well. I'm not going to pick Morata, sadly, although he did score a lot of goals. You know, he's now up to 6 in Euros history, which is more than Scotland have in their history in the Euros. So, sorry,
you have to get that in, didn't
you? So yeah, I mean, I guess Kane as well. I mean, you know, we are all guilty of like getting to the end of tournaments and kind of retrofitting narratives a little bit. You know, Benzema had a couple of good games, but again, if you're playing for France and you get knocked out in the first knockout round, probably don't deserve to get into the team. So yeah, I'd probably go for Schick as someone who essentially got his team further than most people thought they'd get.
Okay, midfielder.
I mean, I'd go Pedri, to be honest.
Pedri?
Yeah, the way he played. I mean, he's so young, you know, and to be plucked by Barcelona, you know, not from their youth system, but from another club, and then just chuck straight in, and you know, to do that, and then to come in and basically dominate that game. In the semi-final against Italy, he did not misplace a pass until the 105th minute, which, you know, I'm not sure how good at football you were when you were 18, but I think I could have got about 8 seconds into that game.
You know what I mean?
I mean, that was one of the most mature, controlled performances I've seen. So yeah, I mean, that he really stands out. I mean, we mentioned Phillips and Rice; they've been good. And again, I think you look at Italy and, you know, the likes of Jorginho and Verratti and Locatelli as well. Yeah, I mean, I think modern football is very. There's always going to be a lot of good midfielders because it's, you know, some teams basically just put out 10 midfielders almost now. So, but yeah, I think you can pretty much go through most teams and pick out, you know. I thought De Jong played well for Holland. Yeah, there's been a lot of candidates actually.
Okay, defender.
Probably go Harry Maguire actually, just because,
brilliant.
You know, when Mings did well for the first 2 games for England, but it's that extra bringing the ball out of defence that Harry Maguire can do, and I think that's given England like another dimension really. There was even a good example of it in the Denmark game where England have got very good throw-ins and they attracted everyone close to them, and then Walker threw it long over everyone's head to Maguire, who then just ran up the pitch with it. And having a central defender that can do that, we obviously got a lot of graphics at theanalyst.com where, you know, to illustrate how, you know, players play and stuff. There's a really good one. You can basically plot a lot of Maguire's touches in games and then compare it to, say, someone like John Barnes from 1990. Pretty similar. John Barnes is essentially playing left midfield. Maguire plays on the left of defence, you know, left centre half. But he gets forward so much that he's essentially covering the same sort of areas. So that's
Maguire having John Barnes Tekkers, bloody hell. I would never have thought that one either. All right, best goalkeeper.
I mean, we mentioned Donnarumma. I can feel you're not going to accept Pickford, even though he's going to smash the defensive record. But I'd actually point out Kasper Schmeichel as well. I mean, he made 9 saves in the England game, which is pretty good. It's the most by any Denmark keeper since his dad did it in '98 World Cup.
Wow.
And a couple of those saves from Maguire, actually, one of them, were just brilliant. He actually.
So I thought that'd gone in.
Yeah. If you take expected goals as the model, you can actually look at where the shots go in the goal and plot how many extra goals that a goalkeeper has saved compared to the average keeper, essentially. And Schmeichel's performance against England in the semi was probably the most effective goalkeeping performance in Euros history in terms of stopping additional goals. So, I mean, it could have ended a lot bigger win to England, I think. And that was mainly down to Schmeichel. So.
Well, I love these stats, man. I love these stats. Do you think they'll be studying these stats for the final? I mean, how important is stats to these teams? They have them readily available now. We do know they're studying them a lot. But
yeah, I think what people need to remember is that it isn't just like, it's not like they just get some numbers and go, well, you know, let's just change that. It's embedded within the whole process. So you know, a team will take like passing patterns. They'll take, I'm sure England will be looking at Italy passing chains. So they'll look at not just who's passing to who, because that's mainly going to be Jorginho to everyone else, but they'll look at where it goes afterwards and where it goes afterwards. And you can actually identify little patterns within games. Like Ukraine, it had their 4 most effective patterns were down the right flank. And that's why, Luke Shaw had such an important role against Ukraine, because he had to cut off the whole thing. So that's where it gets to, it's more kind of, that will be given by analysts to the manager and the coaching team. And then they won't say to the players, these numbers say this. They'll just translate that into, right, you need to be standing here. They'll do a lot of passes around here. So it's a lot more kind of organic now. And I think that's where football has advanced. But it's never going to replace coaching or scouting. It's just going to make it more effective. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of supporting it rather than replacing it.
So guys like you are of real importance now. If you want to win a game,
that's up for debate. But
want to win a game, give someone like you a call. You know what I mean? Give us the lowdown on the opposition, and we can block it off.
Yeah, that is theoretically the case. Yeah, I mean, it's the same with everything. You look at many areas of life now. People put a lot more thought into stuff and planning and things than they used to, and that's because not only is more data available, but you can do it a lot more quickly. Some of this stuff people would have been doing in their heads maybe 20, 30 years ago, but now the computing power is there to be able to run it for, you press a button and it's run it for 1,000 games. And that's the advantage, is that you can actually make better decisions because you've got technology that supports that.
All right, well listen, Duncan, it's been a pleasure having you on board.
Thank you.
I want to get you back to do some more analysing.
Yeah.
Remember, tell everybody where they can find you again to get all your brilliant stats around the games.
Yeah, I'm Oily Sailor on Twitter, and then theanalyst.com is our new website, which is kind of all powered by Opta stuff. And yeah, we've done a lot of good Euro content, prediction models, things like that. So yeah, check it out.
All right, well, listen, make sure you check him out. It's been really, really interesting. The stats are important, but what's even more important is that these guys have got to bring it home on Sunday. Let's hope it's coming home.